With one of these Pokemon Center Elite Trainer boxes being up more than 330% in the last 12 months, a Pokemon Center Elite Trainer box is really a better investment than booster boxes. Okay, Scarlet and Violet base, guys. Probably the most underrated set from the entire Scarlet and Violet era. This is a lot better than what people think, but I won't get into that right now. Up 107%. Let's just make sure here. 107% in 12 months. Just over doubled in the last 12 months. Not bad for a base set. Base sets don't usually do too well. Well, in recent years they haven't. Scarlet and Violet base, absolutely on fire. But how does that compare over the last 12 months to its Pokemon Center ETB rival as a sealed investment? Here's the Koraidon. 145% growth in 1 year. $151. This literally would have cost you $60, $61 a year ago. Crazy. Obviously, we know why. The Pokemon Center stamped promos in these Pokemon Center Elite Trainer boxes are obviously what's carrying these as a sealed investment. This thing's up 145%, smashing the booster box as an investment. Here's the Miraidon. 147% growth in 12 months. Obviously, the stamped promo is the Miraidon within this set. They're both pretty cool cards. I quite like the promo in this one. But 147% growth in the last 12 months. Very similar percentages to the last Pokemon Center ETB. Some of these sets obviously have 2 ETBs or 2 Pokemon Center ETBs. I don't really like when there's 2 ETBs, but it is what it is. The Pokemon Center does that with some sets randomly, and the base set happens to have 2 different ETBs, the Miraidon and the Koraidon in this case. But I just wanted to talk, let's just go back a year, right? Just for the price, $73 a year ago. And yeah, $182, more than $100 growth in the last 12 months. So there's base set, right? There's the Pokemon Center ETBs and the booster box from base set. Now, it's hard to argue against Pokemon Center ETBs as not being a better investment. The proof is in the pudding. It's right there. But I always say, when we look at a long-term time horizon as investors, 12 months is not enough, 6 months is not enough, 3 months is not enough. And I just want to, I'll give my thoughts as we go along, guys. But again, it's hard to argue against Pokemon Center ETBs as an investment, though I think there's a case to be made, even though the booster box hasn't performed quite as well. Let's just flick back here. I just want to go through some of the more recent growth, right? So the Pokemon Center ETB smashed the booster box with base set over the last year. If we look at the last 3 months, this one's up 50%. If we go to the Pokemon Center ETB, 3 months, it's winning again. And the Miraidon one on 3 months, 62%. So even on the 3 months, the Pokemon Center ETB is still really kicking ass. Kicking the booster box's ass. But if we go back here, 1 month, 24%. So we see a really big spike in the last month for Scarlet Violet base. This thing is just crossed, basically just now crossing the 2-year mark, which is a very important sort of time frame for booster boxes. The 2-year mark, things really start to take off if it's a half decent set with booster boxes. And we're really at that 2-year mark now. People are starting to appreciate base more. The PSA, some of the PSA 10s coming out of this set are extraordinary. And 24% growth in 1 month. Let's look at the Koraidon Pokemon Center ETB in the last month, 12%. The Miraidon Pokemon Center ETB in 1 month, 14%. So is it slowing down? Are the Pokemon Center ETBs from Scarlet and Violet base slowing down a bit? Because the Scarlet and Violet base booster box over just the last month, which is, I'll admit, that's not a long time frame. It's a nothing burger, right? It's 4 weeks basically. The last 4 weeks, the Pokemon booster box, rather, the Scarlet and Violet base booster box is ahead on percentage growth. But that doesn't take away from the fact that over the last 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months, the Pokemon Center ETBs have been kicking ass when it comes to competing against the booster box as a sealed investment. So where am I going with this? Well, we're sealed investors, right? When I talk about investing in booster boxes, the reason I like booster boxes is because you get all the packets in one neat little parcel. It takes up no storage space. You don't get promos, you don't get dice, you don't get folders, stickers, energy cards. You just get 36 neat packets. And I always go back to my foundation. I want as many packets as possible for my money. That's why I like booster boxes. Before I ramble on too much, let's get through the next 4. There's a bit to get through. Here's the Paldea Evolved booster box. Up 108% in the last 12 months, the booster box. How does that compare to the Pokemon Center ETB? Up 213% in the last 12 months. Again, the Pokemon Center Elite Trainer box kicking ass. These Pokemon Center ETBs are really making the booster boxes look bad, but that's for now, right? We're in a very strong bull market. People are paying a premium for these products because of the stamped promo. And some of these Pokemon Center stamped promos inside these ETBs are going for massive money in PSA 10s, if graded in a PSA 10 or on a Beckett 10, CGC 10 to a lesser degree. But there's the comparison with Paldea Evolved, right? Paldea Evolved is one of my favorite sets. I've got a few, but it's up there. Paldea Evolved is one of my favorite sets from the Scarlet Violet era, as far as regular sets go. As far as regular sets go, it probably is my favorite, I'd say, as far as booster box sets. If we look over the last 6 months, it's up 58%, 57% in 3 months, and 16% in 1 month. If we go to the ETB, up 180% in 6 months, 77% in 3 months. Over the last month, 2%. Again, the booster box over the last month, 16%. So is there a shift happening just as recently as the last month? Is there a shift happening where the booster boxes have performed better in the last month, only the last month, than the Pokemon Center ETBs? I don't know. Maybe things will change, right? Let's move on. Obsidian Flames, the third set to be released from the Scarlet Violet era. SV03. $190 for this booster box. 78% growth in 1 year. I'll be honest, even 78% growth to me is astounding. I don't really rate Obsidian Flames at all as an investment. I'm pretty sure I've got no Obsidian Flames. I'm pretty sure I've got no Obsidian Flames at the moment. Look, I may change my mind down the track as I track the numbers. If things change, I might decide to jump on the Obsidian Flames bandwagon. But 78% growth for a really, really dud set. In my opinion, it's a dud set. There's a couple of big PSA 10s that have come out of this set, but it's definitely down the lower end of Scarlet Violet for me. I'm not interested in Obsidian Flames. I like the Charizard and the Ninetales in it, but it's just not a strong investment. But that's strong, 78% for the last year, right? And now the Pokemon Center ETB, we all know it. It's probably the number one Pokemon Center ETB everyone wants. Up 333% in the last 12 months. $282 for this. You get 11 booster packs in this. Everyone wants it for that Charmander. That Charmander, I think, is probably the best Pokemon Center stamped promo so far from the Scarlet Violet era. It's a banging card, and it's worth about $1,700 odd US dollars when graded in a PSA 10. That is extraordinary. That's an extraordinary number for a promo card. It's a beautiful card. I love it. It's done really well, but I don't think that price is sustainable. I don't think... Look, if you're new to Pokemon investing, maybe you haven't seen single card prices crash, but I have, and it happens. And people never believe it happens right before it happens, but it does. It goes through cycles. These single card prices, you're putting a lot of value. You're ascribing a ton of value to these promo cards. At the end of the day, if there's a big market correction, not necessarily a crash, but a correction, when things come back to reality bit, the first thing that's going to get hit is single card prices. Booster boxes will not be affected anywhere near as much as single card prices. So when you've got a $1,700 PSA 10 Charmander and the market goes through a correction, I don't want to make any big bold predictions or act like a doomsday or try and promote fear or anything like that, but there will be some kind of correction at some point. The single card prices will get affected. The Charmander in a PSA 10 could go from 1,700 to under 1,000. It could get chopped in half. I don't know. Again, I'm not going to make predictions, but that's why I go back to my roots as an investor, my foundation. Get more packets. You guys always talk about getting as many packets as you can for the money, and now a lot of you are putting a ton of value into these single promo cards. So are you sealed investors or are you single investors, card investors? because you walk in a line. You walk in a line between being a sealed investor and a singles investor when you ascribe so much value to these Pokemon Center ETBs. Look, having a couple I think are worth it. I think this one, the Obsidian Flames and the Paldea Evolved ones are probably the best Pokemon Center ETBs, and I wouldn't knock you for having those. I don't think you need to buy every single Pokemon Center ETB instead of a booster box. If you've got enough money to do it on top of your booster boxes, great. But I don't think there's any need. If you've got enough booster boxes in each set, I don't think you need to get the Pokemon Center ETB every single time. If I just flick back here to the Obsidian Flames booster box, over the last month it's up 7%. Over the last month the Pokemon Center ETB is up 9%. So the Obsidian Flames Pokemon Center ETB still outperforming the booster box on every single metric. And this is one where I would say the Pokemon Center ETB is better than the booster box, because I don't really rate the Obsidian Flame set. And that Charmander card is what it is. It's the best card, period, from Obsidian Flames, even though it's only a promo card. Bloody expensive promo card. So there is an argument to be made for both booster boxes and Pokemon Center ETBs in certain sets, right? I'll get my point across as we go through this video, guys. I think I'm leaning towards booster boxes for the long term, right? 95% growth, 96% growth for Paradox Rift booster box over the last year. If we look at the Roaring Moon Paradox Rift Pokemon Center ETB, it's up only 67%. And if we look at Paradox Rift, has 2 Pokemon Center ETBs and 2 ETBs. So we've got the Iron Valiant Pokemon Center ETB here, up 29% over the last year. 29%. So again, 29% for this one, 67% for the Roaring Moon, and 96% growth for the booster box. So in this case, SVO4 Paradox Rift is the first time we're seeing a booster box on this list, and the first time in the Scarlet Violet era where the booster box over the last 12 months has outperformed the Pokemon Center ETB. I'm not going to go through what all the promo cards are in each Pokemon Center ETB in this video, because it will go forever, and I know on the internet people don't have long attention spans, so I'm going to try and keep it brief. I'm not going to talk about all the promo cards, but obviously some sets have better promo cards, some Pokemon Center ETBs have promo cards that are not as sought after, and that's where the booster box is going to reign supreme as well. If we just check the 6 months here, the Paradox Rift is up 77%, 48% in 3 months, and 18% in 1 month. The Roaring Moon Pokemon Center ETB, 21%, 38% in 3 months, and 75% in 6 months. So there's not much difference. Still performing really well. And the Roaring Moon more popular than the Iron Valiant by the looks of it. Over the last... Sorry, that was 3 months on the that was 3 months on the Iron Valiant. 1 year it's up 62%. It's still the lower of the three, I think. Yeah, just behind the Roaring Moon. So the Roaring Moon seems to be a little bit more popular. Over the last month, 17%, 29%. This is the Iron Valiant. 6 months, 84%, and 1 year, 62%. So Paradox Rift, let's just flick back here, see what it did over the 6 months. 77%. Iron Valiant, 84%. Overall, for the last 12 months, the Paradox Rift booster box has outperformed, though the Pokemon Center ETBs have really performed quite strongly as well. So again, people that are collecting the Pokemon Center ETBs, I'm not throwing shade at you or trying to criticize your investment decisions. My personal philosophy is to get more booster packs for my money rather than invest in all these promo cards from the Pokemon Center ETBs. I'd rather just buy the Pokemon Center cards where they're a good value separately and keep buying my booster boxes. I just think I get more value for money. I think here's the booster box. We'll do the last one, right? I'll give my thoughts at the end. Temporal Forces. Let's just do the year. 58% for the booster box in the last year. 67% over the last 6 months growth for Temporal Forces. 64% growth for the Pokemon Center ETB for the Iron Leaves over the last 6 months. Over the last year, well, it dropped in March 2024, so it's not quite a year yet. So just ignore that first big plummet, I think. Let's just look at the 6 months for the Temporal Forces. So 67% for the booster box, 64%. So very similar for the Iron Leaves, Pokemon Center ETB, 88% for the Walking Wake. The Walking Wake being more popular than the booster box and the Iron Leaves Pokemon Center ETB. The Walking Wake Pokemon Center ETB being the biggest performer out of these three from Temporal Forces. Guys, how much higher can these promo cards inside these Pokemon Center ETBs keep climbing? Again, we're in somewhat of a bull market. It's not a bull market across the board because there are things that are not going up in value. Seems to be the newest, latest, greatest things are really getting all the attention. So there's been a shift in the way people are investing and spending their money. But the point is, how high can these Pokemon Center stamped promo cards keep rising? They will have a ceiling. Long term, I think the booster boxes, the growth of the booster boxes and the consistency and having all those packets and all those chances to pull big hits is going to appeal to the long-term collector, because when we go through these bull and bear markets and all this sort of jazz, again, when the market starts to correct, and at some point it might happen mid-year, might happen later in the year toward the back end of the Scarlet Violet era as we lead into the next era. I don't see this bull market continuing to run for another year. I think it's going to be at some point in 2025 we're going to see a big correction. I just don't know when, and I'm not making those predictions. And I think the Pokemon Center ETBs, are they a better investment than booster boxes? I think they win the sprint, but they don't win the marathon. They win the sprint, but they don't win the marathon. I think the booster boxes win the marathon. If you just look at the last 12 months, you would say I'm dead wrong. But again, that's 12 months is a sprint. Okay, I'm talking about 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. As the market rides through its different cycles, I think the booster boxes are going to have a stronger foundation. Way more packets for your money. Way more packets for your money. And again, the single card prices, the promo cards, are going to get affected a lot more harshly. I'm not saying they're all going to crash or anything like that. They're going to get affected a lot more harshly than what the booster boxes will. The booster boxes might come off 10-15%, some of them, for a shorter period of time. And as time goes by and more packets get ripped, they'll continue to grow in value. I just think booster boxes are still my preferred investment, especially down here in Australia. We pay so much more on the secondary market to get these Pokemon Center ETBs. And once you throw postage from overseas into the equation, it starts to become not feasible. I can't justify buying a Pokemon Center ETB when I can buy a booster box quite often a lot cheaper. Sometimes 2 or 3 booster boxes for the same price as one Pokemon Center ETB down here. We do have a Pokemon Center Australia website now, which came out last year, which I was very excited about. But the products on there for the Australian version, believe me, they're very limited, and we don't always get to see the Pokemon Center ETBs. They're a lot harder down here in Australia. If you're in America, you might have a different perspective. I still think booster boxes reign supreme long term. I might be wrong over the next 3 months or 6 months, but I think over the next 3 to 5 years I'm going to be right, and my money's going to keep going in booster boxes. If I see a Pokemon Center ETB at a pretty good price when the market starts to settle down, I will pick one up here and there. I'm not like against them. I'm not knocking them. They are a freaking solid pickup. But I like my booster boxes. I'm going to keep buying booster boxes instead for now until I can get a pretty decent bargain on a Pokemon Center ETB. That's my take on Pokemon Center ETBs versus booster boxes. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching the Chase Card. Thanks for subscribing and supporting the channel. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.